12:15. All right, I think we're going to get started. My name is Daniel Ferguson. Just wanted to welcome you to this event, which is Above the Law and your fellow summer associates, sponsored by Outlaw and Practical Law Company, and Skadden has given additional sponsorship as well. So I just wanted to, very short introduction and present our panelists. On my left, your right, there is Chris Lafferty, currently at Practical Law Company, who has previously worked at Allen & Overy in New York in the capital markets and M&A groups. He's graduated from American University, Washington College of Law. And there's David Latt, who is the founding editor of Above the Law, and he has previously served as editor of Wonkette, a widely read politics blog, and he founded Underneath Their Robes, a judicial news and gossip website. Prior to that, David worked as a federal prosecutor in Newark, New Jersey, a litigation associate at Wachtell Lipton, and a law clerk to Judge O'Scanlan of the Ninth Circuit. And David graduated from Harvard College and Yale Law. So, welcome to our panelists.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks to Outlaws for having me. Thanks to everyone for coming. I see that everyone has fallen through the traditional law school path of leaving the first two rows open. So can you hear me in the back? Okay, good. I'm pretty loud and we're mic'd, but I just wanted to be sure. So anyway, this is a very interesting topic, and I think it's very apropos given what's happening in the hiring market and the general end of the legal profession as we know it. So congrats, law students. These are it's sort of like that old Chinese proverb or curse, or may you have an interesting life. These are interesting times to be a law student. I'm just curious, just by show of hands, how many of you are 1Ls? Oh, so actually there are a fair number of you. I know that there was some other event playing opposite us. How many of you are 2Ls? Okay, and 3Ls? LLMs, others? Okay, cool. I just wanted to sort of figure out where to pitch my level of, sort of like what to talk about, what not to talk about. I have a feeling that this is something the whole family can enjoy, but except for a couple of stories. We are being recorded, right? But I'll try to keep it. I think this will be good. Also, one other question. How many of you are familiar with Above the Law? Okay, good. So I won't go through, well, this is a website I started in 2006. So anyway, being a summer associate has changed a lot in the past couple of years. Oh, sorry, I have like a blogger, I just have a very sort of digressive mind and a short attention span. Just in terms of format, I'll speak for a bit, probably more of the salacious stuff. Chris, who's from Practical Law Company, will speak about more practical stuff, and then we'll open the floor up to questions. And we do want to leave a lot of time for Q&A. So being a summer associate has changed a lot. I think once upon a time, it used to be sort of like MTV Spring Break, like everyone having a good time, everyone at the beach. When I was a summer associate at Wachtell, there was a beach outing to this partner's amazing house out in the Hamptons, lots of booze, everyone just having a great time, occasional hookups. It was great. Now, it's sort of like no longer MTV Spring Break, and now it's more like Survivor. The last one left on the island wins, or in this case, gets the offer of permanent employment to return to the firm after graduation. And it really is like this. Here's an anecdote from last summer, which was before everything got really bad. I kind of like to think of this as sort of like, BC and AD. I like to think of this as sort of like BL and AL, before Lehman and after Lehman. Because at least in sort of Wall Street law firm transactional circles, and litigation too, because litigation's not been really as fabulous as everyone is expecting, the fall of Lehman Brothers in September was really when things got really bad. For a while, people were saying, oh, things are kind of slow, we're muddling through. And after Lehman, it was sort of like the sky is falling. So anyway, this is in summer 2008, so this was before everything got really bad. We were technically already in a recession, which started in December of 2007, but before we really started to panic. There was a firm in Chicago where the summer associates were so petrified of not getting offers that people were staying there till 3 a.m. This is no longer the summer associate thing of, oh, we got to leave at 5:30, there's a cocktail party, there's a wine tasting. No, people were there, like, even, I don't know if they all had work or anything, but they were there till 3 a.m. It was almost like the staying, I don't even know if the partners or associates were there, but the summers were, and everyone was just completely petrified. And here's the scary thing. Only 80% of them got offers. So it's kind of this, like, it really is sort of this very grim time in a way, and it changed so quickly, because even just in the time that I've been working on Above the Law, At first, we all thought that starting salary was going to go to $190,000. There was this rallying cry in the above the law comments of NY to 190. That now seems like a sick joke. But that's what it was back then. And now people are worried, can I even get a job? Even graduating from, even graduates of top law schools like Duke are very nervous. Now, I don't want to get you all, freaked out, because you can just read our website for that. So there's bad. The bad news is having a pulse is, necessary but no longer sufficient to get an offer. Here's the good news. The good news is some firms, at least, already realizing we were in deep doo-doo, started to scale back their summer hiring for the coming summer. So the good news, for those of you who have offers, and I've talked to a lot of people at top law schools, UVA, Georgetown, places I've spoken at earlier, a lot of students at these schools actually don't have offers. You might be in that same boat too. But if you do have an offer, the good news is it's quite likely that your firm realized things were bad and sort of scaled back hiring accordingly. Because nobody wants to be the place that shows up on, above the law's nationwide no offer watch. This firm gave people one out of two people an offer to return. That's horrible. So, sorry, just checking the time. I feel like, in a way, some firms were a little more conservative in their summer hiring so that hopefully they'll give a normal, as in high, percentage of offers. So let me just go through a couple of anecdotes or object lessons, because I think that these are a good way for people to actually, sort of things that will stick with you. I think that perhaps in terms of the canon of summer associate lore, I think that there are two stories that really are the foundation. One of the stories is that of Jonas Blank, who at the time was a summer associate at Skadden. And he sent an email. Let me pull it up on my BlackBerry because I don't want to just paraphrase it. I really want to do it justice. He was a summer associate at Skadden at the time, and you know what that entails, lots of long lunches and whatnot. And he was responding to an email from his friend Melissa and was sort of telling her how this summer associate experience was going. So he wrote this email, and so profanity in the original. I'm busy doing jack shit. Went to a nice 2-hour sushi lunch today at Sushi Zen. Nice place. Spent the rest of the day typing emails and bullshitting with people. Unfortunately, I actually have work to do. I'm on some Corp Fin deal under the global head of corporate finance, which means I should really peruse these materials and not be a total fuck-up. So yeah, corporate love hasn't worn off yet, but just give me time. Now, Jonas thought he was sending that to Melissa. Unfortunately, he sent it to the entire underwriting group at Skadden. So that was sort of awkward. But back in the day, that was actually, he actually got an offer, and he actually went... Oh, I didn't know that. That's kind of the punchline, I guess. He actually got an offer, and he stayed at Skadden for several years, and then he lateraled over to a boutique firm. But, he's doing well. We covered his wedding on this site in Legal Wedding Watch. So, Jonas is happy, and everything is good. But it just goes to... That is sort of one of the great stories. And, usually we keep these people's names out of the stories because we don't want to they're like juvenile adjudications. We want to keep them under seal. So whenever we run summer associate stories on Above the Law, we tend to keep them anonymous. But in Jonas's case, he got written up in the New Yorker. So I could leave his name out of it, but the New Yorker already named him, identified in my name. The second story is that of a woman that we call Aqua Girl. She was a perky 2L from UVA who was summering at Cleary, and she had an illustrious career, actually, as a college swimmer. So one night at this charity event at Chelsea Piers, the sports and entertainment complex along the river in New York, she decided that it would be really fun, after having a few drinks, to just go swimming, everyone. So she stripped down to her underwear, handed her a cocktail gown to a bystander. In some versions of the story, it's a partner, but you never can tell. There was always this sort of urban legend aspect to all these stories, and did a big swan dive into the Hudson. Unfortunately for her, she had to be rescued by either, again, accounts vary, either the Coast Guard or the NYPD in a boat. She couldn't quite get back up to shore. I think if you've been to Chelsea Piers, there's that kind of steep drop-off. And that also did not distinguish her. Although, happy ending here too. She did get an offer, but she ended up going to a different firm, and now she is happily an associate at a very prestigious DC law firm. She's still there. I checked the website yesterday. I guess some of these stories show two things. One, don't screw up. But two, there is life after your screw up. So I don't want to sort of panic you too much. Now let me just I don't want to sort of run out all of our time here. I guess we started a few minutes late, so I guess I haven't used up as much time as I thought. But some time ago on the site, we we posted a memo that NYU actually circulated to its law students in advance of their becoming summer associates. And it was sort of like tips and advice about how to conduct yourself as a summer associate. And the best part of the memo was this section that they called Real-World Examples of Career-Limiting Behavior. I kind of like that, career-limiting behavior. So it's like, oh, don't say the person screwed up. They engaged in career-limiting behavior. So anyway, I'm just going to read a couple of these excerpts to you, and then I'll turn over the floor to Chris. So this is a long list. I'm only picking out the best ones. Here's one. Unimpressed with the quality of wine being served at the summer welcome dinner, summer associate orders a special bottle of wine and charges the wine to the firm. Don't do that. They pick really nice stuff for you. Don't be the one who's at the reception going to say, actually, this stuff is dreck. Give me something better. Here's another one. Summer associate complains about having a windowless office and then claims to have been promised a window office during the interview process. That kind of attitude is sort of like, it's like Trey 2006. They might just say, we'll give you a window office and we'll push you out of it. It's sort of like they put you in the supply closet, just be thankful. Here's another one. Firms want summer associates to be hungry and all, but this is probably different. Summer associate shows up at all firm events involving food and is so busy eating that they fail to socialize with anyone else. Now, understand that these summer associate events, they seem like fun and they're partly to woo you, but they're partly also to see how well they like you. It's sort of like what one associate described to me as sort of the lunch test. When you have that lunch at the end of your callback, it's sort of like, okay, you're smart, you have a good transcript, you went to a great law school, but do we want to have lunch with this person? So that's what these events are. And if you're just busy there stuffing your face, you're not actually going to get to know any of the people who are making hiring decisions. Here's another one. Summer associate refuses to work past 7 p.m. or on weekends. This is like the cleaning lady, Florence from the Jeffersons, who's like, oh, I don't do windows. When you are an associate at the firm, you will be expected to work nights and weekends and holidays and then some. And when you're a summer associate, granted, they try to go a little bit easier on you. But if they're giving you so much work that you're actually busy as a summer and actually working and they want you to stay until 7 p.m. or on the weekends, you should oblige because it will help you get an offer and you'll make a good impression. Here's another one. Creativity in the law is great, and in the academic context, it's probably encouraged a lot. In the practical context, you probably want to stick more to established precedent. A summer associate makes up citation to support the position he or she is trying to prove in a brief filed with the court, resulting in immediate termination and letter to board of professional responsibility. Not good. Here's another one I like. Summer associate refuses to input edits to a draft brief because, quote, I was an English major in college and I know your edits are incorrect. No. Here's another one. And this reminds me actually of one of my favorite summer associate stories from last summer. Summer associate engages in, and this is very genteel, this is the original wording of the memo, public display of affection with co-clerk in library. Now, I don't know what said public display of affection entailed, but generally at firm events, you should probably keep the PDA not so P. For example, one of the stories last summer when I was telling you about how everyone was staying till 3 a.m., I do some freelance work, and I wrote a column for the New York Observer complaining, I think the title of it was, Where Have All the Summer Associate Scandals Gone? Because everyone was being so goody two-shoes, it was no longer fun for me and fellow bloggers to cover the gossip. Thankfully, that same week, 2 young women at a firm in Minneapolis were caught in a smooch, a rather big smooch, at a firm social event in front of partners. So we kind of, we had fun with that. And don't get me wrong, I know this is sponsored by Outlaws. I'm totally in favor of same-sex interaction of all types, but probably not good to engage in this sort of lesbianic lip lock at the firm event. That was not advisable. You can always just go home for that. Why not just, share that cab home with your fellow summer, and then you can hook up. But don't do it at the firm event. Here's another. Summer associate visits porn sites at the office. Come on, guys. Although you would think that people would, you'd think people would know better, but heck, there have been judges who have been disciplined for this kind of thing. So it's like, summer associate forwards sexist joke to several attorneys at the firm. Those like FW colon, FW colon, FW colon, isn't this funny? If you're going to forward around the sexist jokes, wait till you make partner. Here's another one. A summer associate has loud, crass personal conversations regularly from office phone. Now that also seems kind of like last millennium. Like, what's GChat for? You don't need to impose that upon your office mate, especially if your office mate is a permanent associate. Here's another one that I like. Summer associate takes a significant amount of office supplies, including 10 to 12 notebooks, home for personal use. Okay, this is just like, don't break the law. That's kind of a form of theft. Now, I know that there are all these sort of de minimis things. If you sort of like, don't tell the law enforcement authorities, but if you raid my pantry back in New York, you'll see I have a WLRK mug from my time at Wachtell Lipton. So, I felt, they got like 6,000 hours of me. They owed me a mug. Just don't steal stuff. They're giving you enough free stuff as it is. If you Google, if you just go to Above the Law and look for, enter the word Swiss Miss, you'll find out about the person who went to the pantry of his firm as a summer associate every night and raided, they were like 30 Swiss Miss packets. Every night he would take all 30 of them away. Now, if he had just sort of done it like a packet here or there, nobody would have noticed. It would have been like Theseus's ship or something, they could change one plank at a time. But if you take the whole drawer every night, someone's gonna notice. Okay, summer associate organizes outing to strip club and Bill's firm. Come on, this is cute. I don't think this is really a fault, but I think this is cute. Summer associate plucks flowers from flower pot in firm lobby. Now, that's kind of sweet, actually. Like, Barack Obama, he met Michelle when she was his summer associate mentor at Sidley. Like, couldn't you imagine, like, you have a crush on your associate mentor, you pluck a flower from the flower pot? Like, I don't think personally that's such a bad one. Okay, this is bad. Summer associate berates female partner for her lack of skill at firm softball event. Now look, we understand you want to have team spirit and all, but don't go around telling the female partners that they're not good at batting or, I'm not good at sports, so I don't even know what the activities are in softball, like batting or running or stealing bases or whatever people do. I like this one also. Summer associate tells partner that the way he is trying to make a fire during a firm canoe trip is quote unquote dumb. Don't criticize the partners, especially not on their fire-making ability. Same summer associate later on the canoe trip goes skinny dipping with senior associate. Mistake, should have gone skinny dipping with a partner. That's a cause of action. And finally, this is a good transition point to Chris, because here's the thing: when you 3 or 4 years later, when I'm not saying you specifically, but when one is being threatened with being laid off and and they make you sign a release saying you give up all the claims, you might remember fondly that skinny dipping trip with a partner. And you might say, I don't want to sign this release. And maybe you'll get a better severance deal. Who knows? Finally, I'll turn it over to Chris now. And he's from PLC, which got its start in the UK. So this, I thought, was an appropriate anecdote to end on. Summer associate says to a British-trained senior associate, I don't know where you went to law school, but in America, summer associates get more substantial work assignments. So anyway, on that note, thanks. Look forward to your questions.
Wow, my speech is definitely not nearly as entertaining as David's. Hopefully it will at least keep your attention for a little while, but I tend to use a lot of those stories when I give this talk as well, and I think David has taken quite a few of them, but we'll try and make it interesting anyway. Like David and Daniel have said, I'm from Practical Law Company, which by show of hands, has anyone heard of us in here? Oh, that's great, a couple of you guys. We are relatively new here in the US. We came over from the UK, where we are actually pretty popular, and we've been around since 1990. So we're getting our start here in the US. And just very briefly, a little bit of background about PLC for you guys is what we do is we provide basically practical, easy, plain English legal know-how for lawyers, transactional attorneys mostly. So we try and demystify the law, make things a little bit easier for you. And as part of our kind of launch in the US and just our general growth strategy, we're giving our web service away for free to law students. So I'm kind of going around to law schools, introducing the program to law students like you guys, and letting you sign up for free for it. I personally wish that I had the program when I was in law school. Excuse me, I think it's a really great resource. I left some materials out in the front. We're also going to be at the Spring Fling this evening with a sign-up sheet. So if you guys want to sign up for the program, again, it's completely free. I'm not trying to sell you anything. You have it for free your entire time as a law student summer associate, as well as your first 3 to 6 months as a first-year associate at a firm. So I recommend looking us up. We're on the web, practicallaw.com. Give it a shot. That's my plug. I'm going to move on from that now, but I do recommend that you guys check us out. It's actually a pretty decent program. So, like I said, unfortunately, I think I have the less interesting of the sticks here. I think when David and I were in the cab last night, he drew the better stick of getting to tell the fun parts of the stories. He gets the what not to do as a summer associate, and I kind of get the what to do as a summer associate. As David was saying, it's you know, the times are changing, and this is certainly a time right now where average might not be good enough to get your offer anymore. It's kind of the time where you may need to stand out a little bit from the crowd. You know, that said, don't stand out too much. Don't be the guy that winds up, or girl, on Above the Law with some, you know, scandalous story. But you do want to make yourself known and do things that certainly can make yourself stand out at a firm. So a lot of this stuff is common knowledge, and I'm certainly not going to dwell on it. I certainly want to save a good amount of time for questions at the end, so we can, you know, get some better stories from David, because they're certainly entertaining. But I do want to go over a couple points. Again, a lot of this is stuff that you've probably heard before, but you know, hopefully we can give it to you in a way that is specific toward how to do it as a summer associate. One point that I will say first, which I think is probably one of the most important ones that you guys can start doing right now, you can do it before you become a summer associate, you can do it while you're being a summer associate, etc., is staying current. This is going to help you with interviews. It's going to help you with talking to people at the firm, partners, senior associates, anybody. The best way to stay current is just read the paper every morning online, 5 minutes, read the headlines. A lot of times, you know, you'll be walking down the hall, your partner will stop you. A lot of them are just really bad at chit chat. So it's really kind of helpful to have, you know, something maybe that you read this morning, like, oh, did you see, you know, what do you think about the AIG bonus scandal? Or what do you know, it's, you know, you don't want to necessarily get too political or too controversial in your topic, but if you can kind of talk intelligently about what's going on currently in the news, or what's kind of going on in the business market, or if a big M&A went through and you're in the M&A group, it'll really show that you're making an effort, you're paying attention to what's going on, and it certainly it helps you just generally stand out as being an intelligent person, which is, in theory, the goal when you're there, is to stand out and you know, let people know that you are competent and can do your job well. So you certainly want to do that, and to the extent that you can do that and you have the time, you know, I think it's certainly helpful, and you know, it'll also, again, you can do that now, and it'll be really helpful. Some of the other things that I think are really important that you certainly want to do is, I know when I was working with summers and whatnot, you tend to give a summer associate an assignment, and they don't ask a lot of questions. And that's one of the scariest things in the world, when you're talking to somebody for about 20 minutes and you've just given them this really complicated assignment, and you're like, okay, so do you have any questions? And they're just like, nope. Okay. I know what I was just talking about was kind of complicated. I don't even understand half of it, and you're not, no questions. Okay, go ahead, have fun. They go off, they spend 3 days doing something, they come back to me 3 days later, and they're like, here it is. And I'm like, what is this? This is not, you know, and it's completely not even remotely close to what we had asked for. So I think it's very important from the get-go to feel comfortable, to ask appropriate questions from the beginning, you know, when you're getting your assignment. You're not going to look stupid. You're going to look stupid when you come back 3 days later and you've just billed 45 hours doing the wrong research or drafting the wrong memo, or, you know, just basically wasting somebody's time. So I felt a lot of times that people were very, very hesitant to ask questions, and that to me was much, and speaking with, you know, other associates and partners, it's something that's very frustrating, and I think a lot of people are very scared about that. So I'll tell you now, it's okay to ask questions. It really does make you stand out, especially if you can ask intellectual questions, or try. I mean, don't ask stupid questions just for the sake of asking questions. If you do get it, great, you're, you know, a step ahead. So with that, I will also say, you know, it's okay to ask questions throughout the process, and you certainly want to do that, especially if you get confused. But what you don't want to do is pester the partner every 5 seconds with, okay, wait, do I want to do this? Do I want to do this? How do I do this? Do I do it this way? What you want to do is you want to show that you've made an effort to answer the question on your own. And again, this is where a lot of summer associates, I think, mess up, because they're scared, or they don't know where to turn, or they don't, you know, necessarily know how to go about answering a question, so they just immediately go to the assigning partner who gave them the assignment, or if they're not comfortable doing that, they'll jump to their mentor, or they'll go to somebody else and they'll just ask a ton of questions. What you need to try and do is find a happy medium. You need to make an effort. You need to show the person that you actually, tried to answer the question first, and that you put some thought into it before you go to them, because it's really helpful if someone comes and says, I spent a half an hour doing this, I was really looking into this, I checked X, Y, and Z source, couldn't find the answer I was looking for, can you help me, can you direct me? There are ways to kind of phrase questions that make you definitely seem more intelligent by saying what you've already done to try and answer the question. So really, I think really important that you try and do that. Some of the other things which I certainly think will play on a lot of the things that David said are, go to the social events, don't, get too drunk at the social events, don't be the summer associate girl who got into a cab with a partner at 1 a.m. at my firm and that everyone saw. I mean, it's just, be subtle about that, especially if you're going to be the summer associate that hooks up with a partner. It's not wise to walk out and, scream at everybody, bye! And it's like, wow, you're getting into the car with a partner. I hope he's just taking you home. I mean, nobody ever really figured out what happened that night, but I don't know. We all assumed she was loose, I suppose. I mean, she was... She was, I didn't like
Brit.
it.
Alan Overy's a British firm, she's a wanton lady.
It was definitely a British partner. He got married a year later, and we all felt sorry for her, but the wife. Because he was this partner, he was great to have fun with, but I mean, he certainly was a scandalous individual. So, you want to go to the social events, but and you want to, certainly this year and years in the future, if social events are cut down, you want to be careful, especially, not to be the one that stands out in a negative way at the fewer events that are there. I mean, in years past, if there were 20 events and you got drunk at 2 of them or something, it kind of, maybe got pushed under the rug. This year, if there's only going to be a couple events and you're the one that's always, really drunk and sloshing around and bumping into people, you're going to be the drunk kid, and also probably not the best, way that your firm is going to remember you by. So, it's important to certainly stand out, but stand out in a good way. If there's any, I think, global message of what Dave and I have both said, I think that's going to be it for today. Some of the other things that you certainly want to do are remain positive, especially in this climate. You're going to get potentially different assignments that you don't want to do, and you have absolutely no interest in doing, mezzanine finance, loan buybacks or something like that, because you want to do environmental law. Well, that's great. You can make it known to the partners that you want to do environmental law, and maybe if a project comes up that's related tangentially to environmental law, they might let you work on it. But, especially in this climate, they're going to use you where they can use you, and you want to ultimately, at the end of the day, get your offer, and then hopefully if you get there, you can negotiate a bit as to where you want to show up at the firm. So you don't want to, complain or bitch or, you don't like the wine, so order a new one. I mean, it's kind of like that. If you don't like the work that you're getting, put your head down, do your work, get it done, do it really well. I really heard a lot and took this on myself. If there were people that were working for me or that I knew were doing a really great job, those were going to be the people that I would probably listen to more. If they came to me and they were like, listen, I really hate doing these CDOs that we're working on right now, which, by the way, everybody hates doing, and now nobody's doing anymore, so I suppose that's good. So we tried to give them a little bit more work because I knew that they were going to be the type of person that would, in fact, branch out and do a better job with the work. So being positive and not complaining, unless obviously something major happens, is a pretty good thing to do. The last point that I think I'll make, and this goes obviously for everything in life, but especially I think summer associates tend to get tripped up on this, is the quality over quantity point, because a lot of times you'll send you'll ask somebody to research a simple piece of law, or you'll ask them to draft a simple, what you think is simple, provision, and you're just, I want a page memo, and that's all I need, really. And they come back and they're like, I wrote this 12-page brief for you, I've included this, this, and this, and you're just like, I am not going to read that, I have no time to read that, it's all, all I need is, the first 3 lines of this, and you've now wasted 14 hours of someone's time. So it's really important that you, follow the instructions and do, if you do really great work as opposed to just, volumes of work, it'll certainly stand out a lot better, and I think you'll be more appreciated by the people that you're working for. Same thing with the quality argument. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely proofread your work. No spelling errors. I cannot tell you how many times I would get things back from people, and there would be minor spelling errors or typos. I mean, if there's one thing in a one-page document, and I mean that's just. It's something that really, you know, you can check for. It's, you know, if you miss some obscure piece of law from like the 1960, you know, First Circuit case, who cares? I mean, fine, okay, we care maybe because it's probably important, but I mean, it's not going to be as bad as, you know, you spelling a word wrong or having some major typos in your work. That's just generally shows sloppiness, and it's something you guys can really easily work on, and it takes a while because I know when I was in law school, you know, the goal when you're typing in class is just take your notes, get everything down, you know, the goal during an exam, get everything on the exam, the bar exam, you just want to write everything as quick as you can, and then all of a sudden you switch into this environment where perfection is basically expected of you. And you're used to doing things, you know, for 3 years a specific way. So it's kind of hard to make that transition to perfection. But you want to do your best. It's certainly a way that you can stand out as a summer associate if you're the one that, you know, makes things look nice and takes the time to punctuate properly and spell properly. So very small point, but huge implications when all is said and done. So just, again, some points for you guys to stand out. The dues of summer associate life. So I think at this point we can turn it over to questions. I mean, David and I have, you know, very broad exposure to the New York and other law scenes, so we're happy to really take any questions you guys have, more scandalous stories or specific points that you guys have or questions about law firms or summer associate programs, anything. Yeah.
Much deterrent effect do you feel that above the law has on law firms? Do you think that they're like actually thinking, I'm not going to make this employment decision because of that publicity I'll get above the law?
Well, you know, I think, to be totally honest, I think that people may have sometimes a sort of exaggerated understanding of whatever influence the site has. I think that the site is in large part connected to the market, honestly. And when it is a seller's market, in terms of a seller's market of legal services, and you guys are the sellers, you're selling your services to the firm, above the law is very strong in terms of that kind of deterrent effect, because people say, oh, I'm trying to get these warm bodies to put on my deals or on my cases. I don't want to look bad in ATL. Right now, the firms are in the driver's seat. So I think that's one reason why they're being pretty open and transparent about things like layoffs and salary freezes, because they're sort of like, oh, you don't like us? Please go across the street. We would love you to go across the street. We can't give you enough work, and we don't want to pay you $160,000. So I think that I would say that the deterrent effect may, if there was one, may be decreasing somewhat. I think it's still valuable at the margins, and occasionally some firms get called out for bad behavior and they do things to rectify the situation, but it's really tied to the market. And right now, we could say we can do all. Here's the thing. Okay, Latham and Watkins, they've done like massive layoffs. They're not exactly the media darling right now. But if somebody who didn't have an offer got an offer from Latham and Watkins, of course they would take it. A job is a job in this economy. One of the features that we're going to be doing next week on Above the Law is going to be a little debate between me and Ellie. I'm playing the bad cop, at least bad from your perspective. I'm going to argue that associates should have to bid to keep their jobs. As in, oh, you want to pay me $160? I'll do the work of a first-year associate for $150. Oh, $150? I'll do $140. Oh, I'll do $120. No bonus. And you know, just kind of see where that goes. Because in a way, if the firms have to pay people less money, they may be able to save more jobs. So anyway, I'm sure that won't endear me to you guys, but and Ellie gets the con side of that, and it's a little bit of a devil's advocate thing. I'm not saying I necessarily believe this, but check it out. We'll be writing it up.
I think from an anecdotal story, right before I left my firm, our associates council, which is kind of a you know, like a student bar association thing, but all the associates at the firm are essentially members of it, and there's a committee that runs it, sent out an email, and I'm trying for the life of me to remember what it was about, and I can't remember, and it was some benefits thing, and it was, I don't remember if it was a maternity leave email or something about A&O not doing something. They weren't going to match the market or whatnot. And at the top, in bold letters, do not forward this to Above the Law. I swear to God, I mean, it was right at the top of the email. It was just, so I mean, at my firm, I mean, it was certainly, firms don't necessarily want, you know, the bad stuff reported. And again, whether the effects it has, I don't know, but I mean, it's certainly, firms do think about it. And I mean, I checked ATL pretty regularly when I was at the firm just to stay current on things because I was really hoping for NY to 190. And I was just waiting for that day. I was like, who's going to do it first? But I often found, like, if something happened and you went into a partner's office an hour later, they knew. They check it and they knew what was going on. I mean, it's talked about, so, yeah.
Another question?
Were there any summer associate stories last summer that you heard like rumors about but you didn't necessarily want to run on the website?
There are stories like that all the time, but oftentimes none in particular are coming to mind because when I get something that either A is off the record because the source tells me this is just for your edification, don't use this unless you can get this from another source, or I almost like put it in like a vault in my mind and I can't even remember it now. So, and there are a lot of other stories where we hear things but there's not enough attribution, or sometimes you hear about stories about, sometimes the bad stories are actually about the regular associate. So there was one story from last summer. Okay, I guess I do recall one, but it's not really about the summer though. It was a full-time associate who, at a party engaged in the same form of sexual activity with multiple people, multiple summers, and so the joke was, wow, this firm is really like trying to recruit people. So you hear these things, but we do try to verify them a little bit. And in a way, there is almost like a kind of natural selection process. If a story is isolated and it happens and we only get one report about it, sometimes we don't run it. The stories that do tend to get run are the things where we get 10 tips and people are everyone is just crazy over it. Speaking of tips, by the way, there are many ways you can send us tips. You can send them tips at abovethelaw.com. Don't use your work account. Use a personal account. Ideally, use it on a wireless device. It may not necessarily pass through the firm servers. Ideally, use it on your personal wireless device. Like if you have an iPhone that's personal and you have a firm-issued BlackBerry, email us from your Gmail or Yahoo account on the iPhone. You can also say, I have a tipster at Weil Gotshal who goes down to the Apple store and emails from there. You can. I'm on Facebook. Facebook messages are great because they'll just see by checking your IP address that you went to Facebook, but they won't know necessarily what you did there. Add me. My friend list is protected, so people won't necessarily see that you're my friend, and send me messages. My cell phone is on my Facebook profile. Call me, text me. I'm really accessible. I'm on AIM if anyone still is on AIM. Wonk David. I'm on GChat. So send us stuff. Because a lot of times people say, well, why would I want to send you stuff? But here's the thing. Above the Law is almost like a mutual aid and protection society for sort of like summer and junior associates. And it's like everyone needs to do their part to make sure that the firms are being watched. And if you decide, well, I don't want to be that person, well, if everyone decides I don't want to be that person, then it kind of becomes like a useless site. So I do encourage you, reach out to me, and we do protect your anonymity. I mean, I would go to jail to protect the source. I mean, at least for like a couple of weeks. Like Paris Hilton or something, because the publicity for the site would be great. I'd be in the New York Times like, blogger jailed. And then, after a while, I'd probably sell you out, but, we still have the room for a little while, right, Dan? So we have time for more questions. Sure.
The two else probably don't care about this, but the one else have our OCI, the fall, and it's probably gonna not be very pleasant. But so one thing I'd like to see just on Above the Law is if you could somehow summarize what's going on, and not just in New York, but a lot of going on all kinds of markets. And so if you could maybe summarize what the firms are doing, just so we can have a better idea of who we should be bidding on and maybe where we should try to go.
Well, in the past, and we'll do this again this fall, we tend to do these sort of what we call fall recruiting open threads. And sometimes we do them by firms that are clustered by their vault ranking. So here's an open thread to talk about firms 1 through 5. And oftentimes these firms are sort of peer firms, so people who have something to say about Wachtell might have something to say about Cravath. And we also, at least in the past, did threads on different markets, like you said. We may have missed it last year. I can't recall now. I mean, the thing about blogging is your attention span just gets fried and you can't even remember what you wrote about yesterday. But that's a good idea, and I think we'll do it. We would do things like fall recruiting open thread, this market, and people could talk about, oh, well, I hear Boston is great, or I hear it's terrible, or it's been really affected by this crisis. So, but that's a good idea. I think we'll do that because people do want a place to sort of serve as a water cooler for that kind of insight and gossip. Go ahead.
What is your take or gossip hearing on, or tips or whatever, on the actual job market for potential 1Ls, and how is it looking? Have you heard anything like?
In terms of 1L opportunities?
Well, going in your 2L year with OCI and things like that, because like this summer, if you don't get a job with a firm or if you don't get a job where you want, it's not, a make or break the deal. But next fall, that's kind of a deal breaker. So have you heard anything or?
Well, I think. Do you want to say anything, Chris?
No, I mean, from talking to my colleagues and friends that are in the New York job market. I mean, anecdotally, I don't know about statistics that have come out yet, but it seems like, and I think David mentioned this a little bit earlier, is that firms are cutting back. They're realizing, it's if you just laid off 100, associates and you have a summer class usually of 100, you may cut back because they know that they're going down. I don't think the statistics have come out yet.
NALP doesn't do their statistics just yet.
Yeah.
But one thing I would say, actually, and I know that part of my, it's kind of depressing. It's almost like on Above the Law, like bad news is sometimes our good news. Like we're having a really slow news day. We don't have anything to write about. And then yesterday, Ellie emailed me, thankfully, this firm laid off some people. Like, not that we're like happy because, these are our friends, these are our relatives, these are people we know who are losing their jobs. So it's really depressing. But in terms of your question, I would actually, so what I was going to say was, even though part of my job is kind of like to sensationalistically fan the flames of fear, I would tell you this though, seriously, I would not stress about it too much right now as a 1L, because here's the thing. I mean, obviously, like Chris was saying, you want to do things to prepare yourself, you want to be knowledgeable, you want to stay up on current events, but here's the scary, I told you I wasn't going to make you more worried, and now I make you more worried. Here's the striking thing about this economic crisis. It changes from day to day and week to week. I still remember the weekend that Lehman went down. Like, you don't know, and you hear the government's going to do this, and this firm is going under. No, they're not. They're getting a bailout. Everything is changing. Congress did this. The Senate passed this. It's in conference committee. Everything is changing so rapidly that as a 1L, I wouldn't stress too much about sort of the general climate other than just trying to make yourself the best candidate you can be. Because once July or August, OCI gets rolled back earlier and earlier. Once summer comes around in a few months, then you will need to start thinking, what firms am I going to bid for? What city do I want to be in? But in terms of just the general economy and the general recruiting and job search environment, it changes so much from day to day. The Dow's had, I don't know how it is doing today. I could check my computer, but the Dow's had a couple of good days. Granted, personally, I think it's not going to bottom until we hit S&P 500 at 400 and Dow at about 4,000. So I think this is like a dead cat bounce, quite frankly. But there's nothing you can do about that. Like, what can you as an individual law student do about the fact that the S&P 500 is going to go to 400? Like, you can't do that. Like, you can't do anything about that unless you're like Bill Gates' kid or something. I mean, and even then. So anyway. I think we have probably time for, 2 more questions maybe? If there are 2 more questions. You guys are so shy. My gosh, come on. Okay, there we go. Go ahead.
Do you see like a long-term smaller legal market in kind of the large, New York and LA and such, and then also that you see Above the Law kind of expanding and covering the legal market in other cities more? I mean, I know it was started as really in New York, but it's
we are trying to. I think that in some ways going forward, the legal profession, at least for the next couple of years, probably will be smaller. I'm already hearing from, say, 3Ls at other schools who didn't get offers at their firms that are thinking about doing things like going into other fields. I think that you are going to see, and a lot of my friends who are laid off lawyers may not necessarily be coming back to the law, or they may be going into other opportunities. There is some truth to that old saw about a law degree prepares you to do anything. I mean, look at Chris and me, where neither of us is practicing, at least terribly actively, in terms of practicing at a firm. I'm kind of like the unofficial in-house counsel at Breaking Media, so whenever we get some angry letter from someone who's mad about something we blogged about, I'm the one who sort of like handles it. So that I still do my CLE, pay my bar dues, but I think that you will see a smaller legal profession. In terms of other markets, we are trying to expand that. We do tend to be a little bit coastal. We tend to focus a lot on the East Coast and the West Coast. But we're always surprised whenever we do something about, say, Texas or Chicago. We get a huge amount of response. So we definitely have readers in these places. Part of it is almost like a cycle in terms of, well, we cover certain places more, so we get more tips, and therefore we have more coverage. So that's another reason if you want to see a particular market or firm covered, it's helpful to give us information because then we can jumpstart a conversation. We recently launched a London column. We'll see. That's sort of an experiment. We're going to see how that goes. But we are trying to expand a little bit. But right now, the legal market is kind of contracting. And there was a question over there.
It's sort of a different route, but I had ran into this. I'm a 3L, and I ran into this problem last summer, and it deals with email etiquette. I'm apparently really bad at it. I was told that I was an aggressive emailer. And I talked to some other partners, and apparently I just had a very peculiar partner, and he doesn't like emails in general. But my question is, it seems like I spend half an hour composing 3 sentences when I email a partner. I want capitalization and punctuation, and I get a response from their BlackBerry, and it's all lowercase and 3 letters. It's like yes or no, and I'm. For a summer associate who sends emails, how much work should I be putting in my emails?
That's a great question, actually. The sad reality of the situation is the partner can do whatever the hell they want. So if they want to just write no in lowercase with no period, they can do that. But there is, I would say that you want to have, you want to put the time and energy into an email. I mean, I've absolutely been there. Even associates do this too. They will spend, hours drafting an email that's going to go out, even just internally to the partner and to associates, because you want to get the information right and you want to do it right. I would not. I know what you're saying about partners who hate email. I had one partner that I worked for that I don't even think he turned on his computer. I don't know how he functioned because I don't know what he did. Like he still kept his time. Like wrote it on the hand paper, gave it to his secretary. Like so, if you emailed him something, even with like the high important exclamation point, like this is important. He isn't reading it. Like you had to like walk a memo to him, which was terrible. But so you got to get a feel for which partners are certainly email partners or not email partners. I think most now have realized email is important, but you do, unfortunately, you do need to spend the time, and you do need to make your email very well done. It needs to be properly punctuated. It needs to be, relatively formal, especially if it's going to a partner, and even more so if you're privileged to be able to send an email to a client. That needs to be absolutely 100% perfect.
Yeah, I would. It's funny. I agree with Chris. There's sort of like the inverse. The formality of email is inversely proportional to the importance of the individual, I would say. So, for example, I was emailing once with Tina Brown, who's this, in media circles is gigantic, and we were talking about my writing for her new site, and I would send out these really beautifully composed emails, and she'd send these things from her BlackBerry, like, yes, no, meet me tomorrow, TMRW, like just, or here's another example, Judge Kaczynski, brilliant jurist. He uses emoticons occasionally in emails. I've gotten smiley faces with winks from the Chief Judge of the Ninth Circuit. John Quinn, the founding partner of Quinn Emanuel, all lowercase. He's very well known for that. So they can do that because they're John Quinn and Alex Kaczynski and Tina Brown. You are Summer Associate. So, I would definitely err on the side of like anality. One more question? One more question, if there is one. Okay, well, thanks a lot.
Just real quick, I think before we end, I didn't mention this enough, but we put this. I put this brochure out front. If you want to pick it up, I think they're outside the door on the way out. It has our website on it. If you want, we have. This is actually something that I think is really, really phenomenally helpful. So I do think it's worth mentioning. But we put together a summer survival guide online, specifically geared towards students. And what it basically is it's just a list of about 15 or 20 of the practice notes that we've drafted that we think are most applicable to summer associates. Basically, very broad notes that talk about what is a public merger agreement, what is a loan agreement, how do the provisions fit together and stuff. They're about 15 to 20 pages each, and I think that this is a great thing if you guys have the chance to get yourself ready for a summer associate position, especially if you know what practice group you're going to be in, or to refer to throughout the summer. So pick up the sheet if you want. It has the link on there, and again, I'm going to put my sign up sheet up here. If you guys want, please feel free to come up and sign up. You have to sign up to get your free service, but again, we're not selling you anything. anything.
It's a great service, by the way. I've seen demos of it, of the PLC for law firms, and it's really helpful. It's more focused on the transactional side. You guys don't have a litigation service, right?
Yeah,
So,
not yet.
but if you are doing transactional work, it's really helpful. They'll have like templates for merger agreements and loan provision, like no shop provisions, and all these sort of technical things that when the partner starts talking about, your eyes kind of glaze over. But then you can look it up on PLC and be like, oh, that's what that is. So it's a really helpful service. I'd check it out. Thanks.
Thanks.